Good morning, and thank you for joining me for today's edition of People and Perspectives. I'm Christine Riche, and joining me today is Annie Beck and Joyce Riche, both who serve as Director of Permanency Services with Diakon Adoption and Foster Care. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Now, last month was National Foster Care Month, and even though it's June right now, I still think it's a great time to recognize and show gratitude to our foster parents here in PA. So first, let's talk a bit about just how many children are currently in the foster care and welfare system.
Sure. I think overall it does range on again, off again between about 13,000 to 15,000 in Pennsylvania. I checked again today, and that's pretty much where they're at still as far as statistics. Joyce, I'm not sure if you've been updated or made aware of anything different, but that's what we're still hearing and seeing.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing. And the statistics are just a little behind, but that's what we heard last.
So when you're hearing about those statistics, what is the average age of the kids that are looking for a good home that can take care of them in the foster system? Are there any of these kids that would be typically in the percentage that ends up getting adopted?
Children can range anywhere from birth to 21 who are looking for foster homes. The average age of a child who's looking for permanency, who's in foster care and looking for permanency, meaning adoption or some kind of kinship resource, is about 8 years old. But the children are any age, and we now do take children up through the age of 21 into the foster care system.
Oh, you do? Because part of the reason why I reached out is ABC 27 last month did a story that the pandemic was allowing people up to 18 to stay in the system, but was basically saying at 18 they aged out, but they actually can stay in until 21.
No, even prior to the pandemic, if youth are in school, a school program or a training program, or they're working at least 80 hours a month, they can elect to stay in care after their 18th birthday. They have to sign an agreement that they will abide by the rules of the family or the facility where they're staying. But that law changed a couple of years ago. With the pandemic, we've taken that up to 22. So the extra year for the pandemic takes it up to 22. And that is a short-term solution that ends in September of this year, September 30th of this year. Then it'll go back to 21.
I see. So when we're talking about the kids that do sign this agreement to stay in a little bit longer, that was another thought of one of my questions, is that at 18, some of these kids might not know a stable environment. And then you're saying, okay, bye-bye. And they don't know how to balance even a checkbook. You know, they kind of skated their way through high school, regular school, never really having an adult mentor to teach them the things that a lot of people learn. Is this an issue and you see ongoing with people that leave at 18, but also then saying the people that do sign up to stay until they're 21, 22, what are the benefits then on that side?
Sure. Yeah, I think we see both. I think you see the 18-year-olds that maybe didn't adjust to that particular family, or maybe they just are ready to just try it on their own. And then I think we also see the kids that want to stay in that family environment as they start school or they start a program or start working. I think we've seen both. I don't know that it goes one way or the other. I think it's based on the what the future holds for that particular individual and what their experiences have been in the system for lack of a better word. I don't like that word too much.
Now, the youth themselves decide whether they're staying. So unfortunately, some of them have been in the system for a while. And again, that word just comes out of our mouth easily. And some of them don't want to be in foster care anymore, even though they don't have those skills. And even though they're really not ready to launch independently, but they are done with the rules and the regulations, and perhaps they've had to move a few times, they're done. They don't want that anymore. And they make a decision to leave, even though the system allows them to stay.
And I can understand that too. You feel like you might be in a situation where you're not 100% trusting people because you get bounced back and forth from different foster home to foster home. And yeah, you just want to try it now on your own because you're feeling like, I don't want anybody telling me what to do. However, there are also statistics of some of the children that once they turn 18 and decide to leave, that are not in their favor. More pregnancies, more drug dependencies. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's absolutely true. All of those statistics, homelessness, drug dependency, incarcerations, unplanned pregnancies increase exponentially with not having a permanency family and being on your own. So whether that's because you left the system at 18 or left the system even at 20, if you think of your own experiences, none of us were fully independent at 18. We still relied on family. We relied on help. Even if we lived independently, we had a family to guide us. So all of those statistics do absolutely increase. Another piece of law is that youth can request to come back into care if they left care after 18 up through the age of 21. They can petition to come back into care. And that is helping with some of the youth who pretty quickly realize they might have made a mistake by leaving care. So that's also helpful. And that is also not pandemic related. That's the law at this point.
Well, that's good that the state and the quote unquote system, because it is what it is, but at least there is some, rope to climb back up and help yourself if you need the services here in PA. So that's a good thing. But thinking too about my past and my family support system, we've all had crazy families in some shape or form. And even though there might have been crazy situations, not perfect situations, the family was still there to support us. And when we learn about how we grew up, I want to pass those lessons on to my son, and hopefully, he learns from that and passes them on. But when you don't have the structure of the family and you end up being one of these statistics that ends up being a young parent, ends up getting, on the streets, homeless, drugs, whatever the situation, but you still end up, having a child, the repetitiveness of being but then back in the system, is that something you see too?
Sure. I mean, as with anything, we make our own decisions and things happen. If maybe we don't have someone helping guide us or helping us along the way. I also see the flip side, which is like my favorite, where they're like, I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to accept who I am now and move on. So, yeah, I think that the higher percentage, unfortunately, is, maybe falls off a little bit. But, I also see the cases where it's a complete opposite. It's the flip, where they embrace change, which is awesome. So I think majority, unfortunately, does learn from past things and where their environment was originally, but they can also change that. So, and we've seen that. So that is always extremely motivating and positive.
And one of the things the state does to help in that process is all of the Chasey foster care independence programming, which is all children who are in care, all youth who are in care beyond the age of 16 must have independent living services provided. They may have independent living services provided after the age of 14. But so our youth are getting those life skills, even if they're not in a family setting. Some of the youth are in a residential program, a group home, and those life skills that families, intact families, the kids get from their parents, these are being provided. So every child has that advantage, and that is funded through the Chafee grants, which also then go on to fund all kinds of grants for higher education, so that our youth can continue their education even though they don't have perhaps family support.
That is actually great to hear that the state's able to do that for these kids, because no matter where you're coming from, we want you to get the best resources possible so that you can be a contributing person to society and, help the income and do what you got to do and be a better parent than the parent that you had, biological. Because some of these kids that are in the system are still connected in some way to their parents, which is why they are in the foster care system. Their parents can't take care of them, so they can't even be adopted out. Would you want to talk about that more?
The grants that I was speaking of had more to do with youth who are still in foster care. So again, their parental rights may not be terminated, as you mentioned. Again, until they're 21 while they're in care, or they can also have these services as part of aftercare up through the age of 23. There are grants. The colleges in Pennsylvania must offer tuition assistance to youth that are in care at that age. There's help with housing and basic needs when they're in college or in any kind of training program after they've finished secondary education. There's help with driver's licenses. That can be a real issue if you don't have a parent who is signing permission for you to obtain a driver's license. and then you try to work without a driver's license, it can be pretty difficult. So there's help with things like driver's license, help with finding auto insurance, the kind of things your parents would have done for you. So that's all available, and it can be funded through the Chafee grants as well. And some of this is federal money as well that comes through the states. So
That's
youth
great.
work through the states, but it's federal money as well. What has happened now during the pandemic, as of late last year through September 30th, is those those funds have been increased. They increased the grants by $400 million for this period of time during pandemic, so that there was more money, especially for the education and training vouchers, but also for the youth to stay in care, beyond their 21st birthday, again, only through May 30th of this year. That's when that period of time ends. Yeah, some other things that are happening is, again, the maximum award per youth for these grants, that the Chafee grants that they can use for higher education, has also increased during this period of time. And those also help with things like paying for SATs if you want to go to college, paying all the application fees for the college applications. All of that can be worked out with your county worker or your placement worker as well. And again, being able to stay in care until 22 or re-enter care until 22, as long as the pandemic is going on. Those are some of the things that have happened in the last year. All of this is why we do work with youth who are in care, even at teenage years and beyond. If their parental rights have been terminated, we are looking for for adoptive families for these youth as well. There's no age that we stop looking prior to 21. We don't stop looking because the youth is older. We also don't ask a youth if they'd like us to find a permanency resource and accept a no from the youth without much work, and helping them understand why a permanency resource would be of benefit. All of these things that we've talked about. So there are definitely adoptions happening for youth up to 21. We recently had an adoption of a youth in May. He was going to turn 21 in June. So we got it in right before his birthday. The court actually shuffled things around to get us in. So we have, through the statewide adoption and permanency network, there is an older child matching initiative that Diakon manages. And we work with, at any given time, 100 to 150 youth who are looking for permanency placement.
Well, that's terrific, because it was also in the back of my mind. We're talking about a little bit of the negative statistics, and obviously there's also positive circumstances that come about. And I want to think that some of the positive stories have to do with great foster care families, but the need is still there. You're always looking for somebody to help some of these kids. How do you find somebody, vet them, if you will, to become a foster family?
Sure. So basically, we'll market our program, and then foster families attend an info session, and we're doing those virtually and hopefully one day back in person, to learn more about what it's going to be like, and the training process, that if they decide to go through this, and all the paperwork. So these people have to be really dedicated people, because it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of time to commit. So, we kind of throw that in our info session, and then they can decide if they would like to go through training. And the training really encompasses the court system, the county, us, and how we all play a role if they become a foster family, not only in the court system, but how do we support them through this? Because it can be tiring, it can be exhausting, it can be confusing. So, between the foster family and the case managers at Diakon and county, they are supported. And these foster families are just some of the most amazing people I've seen. Our caseworkers and case managers, some of the most amazing people I've seen. And that's what makes success happen, is when all the parties come together beautifully. They teach each other, they learn from each other, they're communicating clearly, and that's when good things happen. Our families are really, really important to us. They go through a training process. They have to continue to train, continue to learn, and that we've just been blessed with some of these families.
And we continue to look for more families, and most of our families are what we call duly certified, because they are fostering at first. But there is always the possibility that a foster care placement might turn into an adoption. So they are certified so they can continue on if they click, and if the match is just perfect, and we don't have to start all over with a new study to turn them into a quote adoptive family. But we, like we've both said we're definitely looking for families all the time. There's other legislation and policies in the state where we're trying to keep kids out of congregate care, those group homes, those especially residential treatment facilities, medical facilities. So we need more and more families. And often these are our older youth. So we are always recruiting for families in many, many, many different ways. But yeah, foster care and adoption can be fairly seamless in this way. Again, a youth might be placed at the age of 15 and they're saying at that moment, I don't want to be adopted. I know I have to go into foster care. I don't want to be adopted. And then they also tend to kind of fall in love with the family that they're with. And that's when adoptions might happen.
I can visualize that in my head, and it brings me a warm feeling to think about that connection that, especially, yes, a child that's in their teen years that maybe has given up a little bit, and then find that family who maybe even was not thinking about being a foster parent, and then they hear this or talk to somebody else and they're like, well, maybe I could foster. I'm not sure I want to adopt, but maybe, I have an extra bedroom. My other kids went off to college already, or something like that. And just to open their heart just a little bit, and then to see, the warm fuzzies that can build, and hopefully, make that great connection. But again, somebody doesn't have to adopt if they become a foster parent, right?
Absolutely. That's a choice. And we try to, at the beginning of placements, really talk about that with a prospective foster parent, whether this is a case that might go that way or not. So that if it looks like the case might go to adoption, that's part of what we do in creating a match between a youth and a family. Is if this is and you don't know for sure, but if it's likely that this case might be long-term and or go to adoption, then our first choice would be a family that's, willing to seriously consider that.
And if somebody is still listening to this and they're like, yeah, I don't have the time, the extra love in my heart to, bring somebody else into my house, is there any other ways that they can help you or help the foster care system?
Absolutely. If they know someone who fosters or has adopted, they can be an assistant to them in some way, shape, or form, a respite provider. Our families who adopt youth from the system, have a lot of needs. These kids have been through a lot. They've been traumatized, so they can require some extra services, and it can be very tiring, as Annie had said. So if you know someone who has adopted an older youth or who is fostering, offer to babysit for an evening and let them get out by themselves. Offer to take the kids to, the pool on Saturday when you're going. This can be a huge help, when this happens once in a while. There are, in most counties, there are foster closets, which are facilities that have clothing and, equipment and toys and books available for families who foster. So donate to those. You can just Google it, go on Facebook. Most of the counties, this is has become the thing in the last several years. So donations in that way. A lot of foster care agencies will put out on Facebook some needs for perhaps for Christmas gifts for youth who might not otherwise have Christmas gifts. So kind of keep your eyes open and look around, as far as what we can do to support our families who are supporting the kids.
And I think another way people can get involved if they don't necessarily want to be that family to open the home, or they're not ready yet, is to just get the word out that, be a marketing resource. If you want to help in some way, it's like, hey, you guys can go here, you guys can go here. This is where you get info. You would be really good at this. Like, just marketing and knowing what's out there and how they can help is always a good thing.
And again, if somebody has this stereotypical, like, oh, especially the older kids, they're bad kids, I don't want to bring them in my home. But really, they want to change the cycle. They just need that positive role model to help them change the cycle and be an awesome human being.
Absolutely. Our kids are great. Probably one of the most important pieces of advice for someone who might be considering it is know the kids will have an adjustment period. And don't take things personally, because just like your kids who are born to you might do, they might target mom when they're in a bad mood. They might target dad, and they might say things that are not very nice. Kids in the system are the same kids. So the most important thing is to not take things personally. Have patience. Have a sense of humor. That's really important. Have a support system. Again, your worker, your county worker, your friends. it is an adjustment period, but we have some of the greatest kids, that there are. The families absolutely benefit as much from from this relationship as the kids do in the long run.
Anything else you'd like to add for me today, Annie?
No, I appreciate you taking the time and asking really great questions and reminds Joyce and I why we do this and why we love the work we do. And we have amazing staff and foster families. So I appreciate you, your in-depth questions.
Thank you. Joyce, anything you'd like to add today?
I would just echo that and thank you for spreading the word.
Yeah.
That's great radio contact. We love to get our word out to everyone. So thank you for spreading that.
Well, I definitely appreciate your time today. Again, Annie Beck and Joyce Riche, who serve as Director of Permanency Services with Diakon Adoption and Foster Care. You guys take care. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. You too.